Hello, happy weekly witnessing tip. I'm Gina.
And I'm Mark, and it's good to have you
Thank you.
back.
It's good to be back.
Oh, it is.
It,
That's not what you told me before. No, no.
Vacation is always nice. It is always nice to get back in your routine, though.
Oh, there you go.
So,
Oh,
yes, it
there
is
you
good
go.
to be back.
Oh, good.
And we are talking this week about reflecting back.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Reflecting back. This is kind of a term that I use at times, but a lot of times when somebody says something that you don't agree with, you know, if you don't agree with something, a lot of times our first tendency will be to say, I don't agree, or, this is what's wrong with what you said. But reflecting back is taking what they say at face value and then taking that to a logical conclusion. I would say one instance of this in the Bible, for example, is when that rich young ruler came to Jesus. Remember that? And remember what question he asked Jesus?
What must I do to be saved?
What must I do to be saved? And now a lot of us, we might immediately jump and say, well, you don't have to do anything, But Jesus didn't do that. He took it at face value. He said, okay, your question is, what must I do to be saved? And therefore, I'm going to tell you, you got to be perfect, And he never once in that conversation mentions the fact that you have to believe in him or anything, because the question was, what must I do? And Jesus answered it.
He laid it out.
He laid it out. Yeah. And I'm going to be blogging a little bit more about that. So, I won't expand on that anymore right here. But okay. I think in witnessing, this can be used in almost many conversations. Once you kind of understand how to do it, it kind of comes up quite easily. But one example in our ministry is that, a lot of times a LDS person will respond to us, well, we are Christians just like you. Mm-hmm. And when they say that, they are very sincere. I mean, right. Let's not doubt their sincerity at all. But the problem is we define the term Christian differently. And honestly, I don't even like to get in that discussion because there's so many different definitions of being a Christian.
Right.
But instead of saying, no, you aren't and all that, what I like to do is say, okay, I'll take that at face value. Mm-hmm. And therefore, and I'm talking to the LDS person now, what you have just told me or what I have heard or what have you is that you believe just like I do because you're a Christian just like I am. And that means that you believe that you don't have to do anything to live eternally with Heavenly Father, like go through the temple rituals or ordinances. You don't have to do any of that. That you don't believe that there are living prophets today or anything. I'm just saying, this is what you have told me when you're a Christian like me, because I don't believe any of that. And honestly, no other Christian, I mean, there's no other Christian that says you have to go through these temple ordinances and everything. And so what you do is you reflect back, and then they will say, no, that's not what we meant. And honestly, to me, that kind of clarifies the issue, and hopefully without trying to come off as argumentative,
right.
But we're just trying to say there are differences. Mm-hmm. There are differences, and when you say something like, we're a Christian just like you have to realize what I'm hearing, and I'm just telling you what I'm hearing. And oftentimes then when you do that, you can really get into the issues.
Yeah, I was just thinking that doing that really helps establish a basis then
right.
for your conversation. But
right, and what you're basically saying is either I'm using your definition, so I'll go over there, and I'm just taking it at face value, or else sometimes like Jesus did, you take it to the logical conclusion. A lot of times, another example sometimes is, people say, well, how come you criticize us or something? And, my response is, and they will say, we aren't supposed to criticize. I'm saying, wasn't that just a criticism? And, and honestly, unless you don't think about it, you don't realize it.
Right.
But sometimes it will make people stop and think and say, if we shouldn't criticize, I can't say anything. Just one final example, and this is outside of Mormonism now, but so many people in our culture today don't believe in any absolutes. There's no absolute truth. Everything is relative.
Right.
And if people do that, you just take that at face value, but then you say, that means what you're telling me again is that you cannot judge anybody or criticize anybody. For example, like the men who flew into the towers on 9/11, you could not criticize them or say they did anything wrong because there's no absolutes. They actually did what they thought was right, and who are we to impose upon them our beliefs if there are no absolutes? And trying to live with the philosophy of no absolutes it will drive you crazy. Nobody can do that, but that's being thrown so much out there. And sometimes all we have to do is stop and make people think about what they have said and the logical conclusions of their argument. So it seems kind of hard, right?
Yeah, it takes some thinking on your feet.
You got to think on your feet, but honestly, practice makes law perfect, first of all. But secondly, you'll be really surprised once you start thinking that way, how it you can easily start thinking that way because you just never have thought that way before. But so the whole idea is instead of telling people they're wrong right away, think, okay, so what if I take that as face value, this is what it means to me. And a lot of times it does clarify.
That makes me think back to our very first witnessing tip we did.
Okay.
When you talked about throwing out the morsel or the hook. I mean, even if that's all the further you get in your conversation is reflecting back and establishing that that's something that they can think about.
They can think about, right,
Yeah.
right. And the next time they might think, oh, yeah, maybe I am being a little inconsistent here, in my thinking.
Yeah.
And so forth. So again, just something I would really encourage you to start thinking about because in our society, I think there's more and more opportunity for us to get people thinking.
Yeah.
Get people thinking.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. That's a great witnessing tip. Watch for that blog that'll be posted this weekend. And then all of our witnessing tips do go on our YouTube page. So if you're ever looking to share these, you can go find them on our Truth and Love Ministry YouTube page.
So, do we have a YouTube page?
We have a YouTube page. He just found out we have a Twitter account.
Yeah.
So. All right. Have a great day. We'll see you next week. And it's going to be from a different location.
Yeah, different location.
And a different face will be in this chair.
From the moon.
Yes. You just have to tune in. All right. Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.